I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
All right. You have to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Michael Durham,
I, Michael Durham,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police sergeant
the duty of police sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations again.
Yeah, I'm getting the light bill, isn't it? That's nice.
That's promotion.
Mm-hmm. We've got to fix this clock. It's slow. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's City Council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in the council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address the council, you can click the button and be given your opportunity to address. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Kelly,
Here.
Councilor Dilaba,
Here.
Councilor Fisher,
Here.
Councilor Kennedy, here, Councilor Powers,
Here.
Councilor Reese,
Here.
Councilor Scantily,
Here.
quorum present.
We do not have any presentations tonight, but tonight we do have a proclamation of National Constitution Week. So I will read this. Proclamation, Constitution Week 2020, whereas September 4th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Jeffrey M. Skelly, Mayor of the City of Ogdensburg, do hereby proclaim September 17th through 23rd, 2020 to be Constitution Week in the City of Ogdensburg, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideas the framers of the Constitution had in 1787. I'll sign this. Sally, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yay, thank you.
Okay. We have one public hearing tonight regarding an ordinance to offer city-owned property for sale at a public auction. A portion of Paper Hayward Street is going to be Bill 68, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium and you'll have 5 minutes.
So I'd like my talk to thank Mr. John Reed for coming locally to the property and looking at it. This was greatly appreciated to know what's going on. I'd like to also thank Mr. Steve Jelly because he sent me a copy of the portion of the land that would be sold, and by that, he assured me that yes, I will have the 75-foot frontage. The only thing that I have is this part of my frontage. I use that 83.84. Part of my frontage will be sold in that auction. And this makes an interlocking. So basically, to get to my lot in that portion, I have to cross somebody else's lot. So the other piece of it, this is in itself could be a problem. I don't have a crystal ball to tell will it or not. But the other problem that I discovered is to get water to my property, the portion B. They were saying that John Street is much higher than Hayward Street. And they would like to get it it would be preferable to get it from John Street. It's closer, higher. So that is the part that I'm sharing with you. So I wanted to ask permission, and if that's possible, that I have an easement on that property to the portion, so that if there will be any need for water to be connected, if there will be need for any, I have to access my land to somebody else's property. I just asked for an easement on that part. I talked to Public Works to know exactly if connecting the water about John Street versus Hayward Street and all that, and they promised me they would get back to me with the information, but till today, like I called today, to ask if that information is available or not, and it's not. So if I may ask to give me an easement to that property, currently it's owned by the city, it's not yet for sale, it is at all that it puts an easement so that I can access my land, especially with an interlocking situation, especially when I don't know what the future holds on what is the need for development, where's the water source, where's the sewer, where's that, where's this. I think if you can, please honor it. Or the other portion is to wait till public works figure it out and put it in writing. This is the plan, so that I know, that easement is not really necessary and they have no other ways to handle the thing.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this? Anyone remotely wanting to speak? Use the raise hand feature. Is there anyone?
I see no hands raised.
I'll declare this public hearing closed. And this brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down and you'll have, to the podium, you have 5 minutes.
First of all, just personally, I'd like to say, I think you made a great decision by hiring Chief Westcott. He was a longtime member of this department, local person here, and I think it was a great job on this administration's part to do that. One other quick comment before Scott and I talk with it is, I understand we have a individual in the fire department that is certified to be an interim fire chief. If that's the case, I hope you fill that a lot quicker than we did the police chief's position. We've got to get over the height of the fire truck, the blue lights, the flag taken down, all that stuff. We got to get over that. Okay? Let's move on and let the individual run that department, work with the president, city manager, and more than ethically come up with a good budget for that department. At this time, we would like to present the city clerk with this petition containing 386 signatures calling for a referendum to be held in the November 2020 election. This petition is in regards to a local law to amend the Ogdensburg City Charter in regards to the powers and duties of the city manager, adopted on August 24th, 2020. Be submitted to a vote of the qualified elected voters of the city of Ogdensburg for their approval or rejection as provided by law. Mayor and Council, it did not take much effort to secure these signatures in a short amount of time. Personally, what was astounding to me was how many people that signed the petition supported and voted you guys into office. We only had 3 people decline to sign this petition. I'm just going to give some comments. Okay? Not only from me, but from the other people that got the signatures. Okay? And take it for what it's worth. Why did I vote for these guys? This is not what I voted for. They sold us a bill of goods. Now, one of them had their own idea. They are closed-minded. They will not listen to anybody. They should not talk about transparency because there has been none in this administration so far. No one minds change, but damn it, do it the right way. Last individual said, I always complain about past administrations for the decisions that they made, but at least there were leaders at that table, all the past administrations. Mr. Mayor, as you said at the last meeting, and I'm going to quote you, I would love a referendum on this issue. Now's the time you could show some leadership, step out of the back room where many decisions are being made by 3 or 4 of you, and give the taxpayers the right and the opportunity to vote on this very important issue. After listening to many taxpayers, and at this time, and this could change, and I'm sure that hope will change, okay? we got a lot of selling to do. After listening to many taxpayers, I would summarize this administration at this time by, you have insecurity issues, you have trust issues, you make a lot of assumptions, you have a lack of communication, and you do not operate on principles. I'm going to leave you with this quote that I read in the Coach's Basketball magazine today. Sometimes our thoughts and agendas are backed by so much insecurity and excuses for everything that they create lies that we all believe in. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to come up to the podium, and you have 5 minutes?
Good evening. After the last meeting, I thought I'd probably better come shed some light on some things. The 4-3 majority bloc. During the election campaign, you distorted several truths, promoted hyperbole, made false promises, engaged in character assassination, and resorted to outright lies, with the intent to dupe the citizens of this city to gain their confidence and votes. You were all successful. You fooled the people into drinking the Kool-Aid and thus were elected. However, the people are now starting to see the light. They are paying attention to your words and actions now more than ever before. And they have seen your true colors are starting to begin to shine through, because your actions are completely contrary to your promises. You promised transparency, open dialogue, and then you would follow the will of the people. All lies. For example, there hasn't been a single public update on the website for the citizens to read since June 26th. The city manager provides council with updates, and they used to be shared with the public so that we could stay informed. The frequent closed-door set meetings at Fisher Chips are also well known. Where is the transparency in those actions? You've rendered the other 3 councilors voiceless by robbing them of their ability to consult with the city attorney, which means you don't value the citizens and seek their guidance and help as their representative voice. You have publicly taunted them with 4-2-3 childish remarks. How is that open dialogue? You have asked your attorney to issue a statement that a permissive referendum is not going to take place in the matter of the charter change and who hires and fires department heads. How does that follow the will of the people? Do you even steal the power of the people? As far as some of these changes go, Councilor Reese stated, that's how other municipalities do it. Councilor Reese, let me remind you, we're the only city in this county. We provide more services to the residents than the others, and that's why we conduct business differently. And while on the topic of comparison, please stop saying that's how we do it at the authority, like that's something to be proud of. The OBPA is perpetually behind on its payments to the city and has operated using a deficit budget for years. Is it your plan to run our budget in a deficit mode, like the authority? Mayor Skelly and Councilor Fisher made promises that the city employees were safe. The mayor even called me a liar when I made a post on Facebook during the campaign that was the only way to achieve a 25% tax cut. And I quote from Mayor Skelly's post on Facebook. I've heard firefighters and police officers are important to our city. Please do not believe Councilman Price lies. End quote. Councilor Fisher issued a similar statement, which was illustrated last meeting by Cindy Lang. At that same meeting, Chief Polniak brought to light the outright lies of Councilor Dillabaugh. I guess we all know who the liars are now. And the lies haven't ended. If there's any doubt to this statement, let me offer you your own words at the most recent meeting, Mayor Skelly. This quote, I watched our previous DPW person torture our citizens for years, and I talked to all you people on council, and you complained about him, but he was buddies with our city manager. And you never did anything till one night when I stood at that podium and you went into executive session. You came out and you voted to fire him. And you told the city manager if she didn't fire him, it was her job. So don't talk about the charter, because that's what happened that night. And then when questioned, I was told by 2 councilors. End quote. I was in attendance as a councilor, Mayor, when you made your complaint at the podium. I was also in the executive session, and you were not. I know that. I know you said that 2 councilors told you about it. If they did, it must have been lies, because none of what you said actually happened in that executive session. Let me inform the public of the exact sequence of events. You know, the truth. You came to council on January 28, 2019, and complained that the DPW director was not being very nice and had overstepped his bounds. You had an agreement with the bank that you could deposit snow for the movie theater in their lot. and you had your employees push the snow across the street. A DPW employee, not the department head, stopped and explained that those activities were illegal. Both city and state laws were violated, but you thought an exception should be made for you. After the meeting, we went into executive session for a completely different reason and adjourned the meeting because there would be no action coming from it. We didn't plan an executive session based on your appearance because we had no idea you were coming to speak. After executive session, we went home. We did not reconvene. We did not vote to fire the DPW director because it was not in council's power to do so. We did not threaten the city manager with their job. All lies. In fact, the employee that you speak of worked until May 3rd, months after your childish tirade. It was the manager's decision. They were not buddies, and it had nothing to do with you. So far, your only accomplishments have been to divide the citizens of this city, eliminate public safety positions, sacrificing the safety of the citizens, take credit for the actions of previous councils. During a time of great stress and anxiety in our world,
Sorry,
you provide
Dave.
the citizens with uncertainty and despair. That's because you, the 4-2-3 majority, have built a house of cards on
Okay.
a foundation of
Thank you, Dave. Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else want to speak?
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Valerie Selby. I'd like to share a few words with you all this evening. Disappointed, disgusted, duped. That's how many of us feel. In the past 8 months, we've witnessed a display of behaviors in city council proceedings that have been called, and I quote, childish, vengeful, desperate, ridiculous, juvenile, and far worse. Some of you apparently don't have the good sense to be embarrassed about that, but it should be very clear by now that many voters in this community no longer support the path that you're on. Social media is a lovely platform for wishing everyone good morning, but it's also a place where many who voted for Mayor Skelly are now expressing their regrets. The 4-3 majority you brag about is being dragged through the mud. Many citizens have stepped forward to ask for explanations and answers that are almost never given. There is nearly constant outrage about how the mayor deletes comments that criticize him and violates the law by blocking those who dare to disagree with him. Instead of simply answering those who question him or engaging in constructive conversation, he continues to try to censor this community. Sadly, it is apparent that even the public cannot inspire shame in an individual who sees nothing wrong with his actions. In January, I was optimistic that the positive changes and visions for our city could come to pass. So far, I've been sadly disappointed. Instead, discord, division, and disrespect have been rampant on this council and in this community. The mayor spoke proudly in an interview with North Country Public Radio about his 4-2-3 decal that he would like to place on his vehicle to show how things are getting done. Maybe the best we can hope for now is that decal will stop him from worrying about the license plate he can't get. In May, a resolution was passed to leave the city manager's position vacant until the end of the calendar year. A few short weeks later, Mr. Jelly was appointed as the interim city manager to serve on a part-time basis. At the last council meeting, Mr. Jelly stated he had not yet had a chance to complete all the staffing evaluations and recommendations that he'd like to present to the council. Unfortunately, council then voted to take away his power to independently make vital staffing decisions, so it appears the fate of his position is already sealed. As a concerned citizen, I wonder why it was decided that Mr. Jelly is not capable of making appropriate decisions about employment of city department heads. Why give this power to the council without adequate time for the new interim manager to complete his assessment? Was Mr. Jelly aware before he was hired that within weeks his job duties would be significantly changed? Perhaps he was taken by surprise. If so, I can only imagine how disappointed he must be now, and sincerely hope that his professional recommendations will carry more weight in the future than public opinion currently does. Councilor Kennedy requested that a moment of silence be observed in this forum on August 24th in remembrance of the late Sergeant Scott Reed, when it became clear that no such action was forthcoming from the chairperson. Thank you, Councilor Kennedy, for recognizing our community's fallen officer. It is greatly appreciated. In contrast, no words can adequately describe the order given by City Hall the very next day to end the display of blue lights at the City Fire Department in memory of Sergeant Reed. After much public outcry, permission was granted to allow the lights to remain lit through September 12th. But how sad that anyone at this City Hall felt the need to dictate the amount of time that is appropriate for a respectful display of sympathy. Scott's life was spent in dedicated service to this country and this community, and the lights of one building may be dimmed, but the love and support of this city will shine brightly for months and years to come. Also on August 24th, Cindy Lang addressed this council, and the prolonged applause that followed should send a clear message that many of us see through these antics. Personally, I find the blatant disregard for our public safety to be appalling. The mayor has blamed other councilors for failing to bring suggestions to the table for cost savings, but has pursued cuts to our PD and fire departments with a single-mindedness that would be admirable if he were building our city up instead of tearing it apart. It has been suggested that we have a referendum to decide whether the city should adopt a volunteer model for fire protection. How would such a change attract new businesses to our city? While the population of Ogdensburg has decreased in recent years, fire load has not. Clearly, emergency response times, ISO ratings, and insurance costs for business owners and homeowners would all be greater. At the last council meeting, an experienced fire professional called in to speak, but unfortunately, the mayor did not allow him to finish. It is said that knowledge is power. I find it deeply disturbing that some members of this council refuse the benefit of knowledge that is freely offered to them. Each of the 62 cities in New York State, including Ogdensburg, has a municipal fire department. We are a city, not a town, village, hamlet, or a county. How others do it doesn't necessarily work here. Both our governance and our public safety departments must be structured in a way that will support the growth that our city hopes to achieve in the future. Scaling back services now may be fiscally appealing for the time being, but please consider the damage that could result from taking away valuable resources that our city has needed in the past and will sorely need again in the future if the economic growth you promise ever materializes.
Your time's up. Thank you.
I'd like 3 more sentences. Take about 15 seconds.
Okay.
In closing, I'd like to recognize current city councilors Kennedy, Powers, and Stamperly for their ongoing efforts and for their continued commitment to representing all residents of our community fairly. And as for the rest of you, your true colors are showing, and they aren't red or blue. The conduct we've seen from the 4-3 majority so far is becoming a stain on the reputation of our community. There are many more voices in this community than just 4. The number of people who have decided that enough is enough is growing every day, and sooner or later, their voices will be heard.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to come up to the podium? Is there anyone remotely? If you're remotely viewing, raise your hand. Anyone, Kathy?
I do not see any hands raised here.
Okay. And this brings us to correspondence. We have a letter from Barbara O'Keefe, President of Fort La Presentation Association.
Dear Ogdensburg City Council, the Fort La Presentation Association requests a temporary easement on the City of Ogdensburg property on Van Rensselaer Lighthouse Point from October 2020 through 2021. The association was awarded a Lake Ontario Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative READY grant to install shoreline stabilization and potentially raise trails. We hope to go out for bid soon. Construction vehicle access for shoreline improvements on the fort property from the city side using the old railroad bed will prevent costly damage to the historic park and the Eddie Trail. Construction will occur during the winter, requiring a construction trailer to be placed near our electrical service box on city property. City property will be photographed and conditions documented prior to the start of construction and returned to conditions equal to or better to existing conditions at the end of the construction activity. The City of Ogdensburg will be named on insurance. City property will also be included in the stormwater pollution protection plan. The stabilization project includes some enhancements to the Addison Trail, enables future development and programming, and encourages natural habitat. The temporary easement map was sent to Andrea Smith, Director of Planning and Development. Thank you for your consideration. Barbara O'Keefe, President, Fort La Presentation Association.
Do we have any other correspondence? So this brings us to consent agenda. The claims as enumerated in General Fund Warrant number 14-2020 in the amount of $2,171,193.02, and library warrant number 14-2020 in the amount of $78,194.18, and general fund warrant number 14-2020 in the amount of $79,724, and community development fund warrant number 14-2020 in the amount of $69.17, and community renewal fund warrant number 14-2020 in the amount of zeros as audited, be and same hereby. I order paid. I so move.
Second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reese,
Yes.
Councilor Scantily,
Yes.
approved.
We have no appointments tonight, and this brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance to offer city-owned property for sale at public auction, a portion of Caper Hayward Street. An ordinance to offer city-owned property for sale at public auction, be it ordained and enacted by the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York as follows. Section 1, the following property shall be offered for sale at public auction by the City of Ogdensburg.
Okay. So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reese,
Yes.
Councilor Scantily,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read again by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
A resolution authorizing the interim city manager to sign a temporary site access and use agreement with Florida Presentation Association.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Kathy, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reese,
Yes.
Councilor Scantily,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will again be read by Director of Planning and Development. Oh, Steve Jelly will read that.
Before I read the resolution, I just wanted to talk to council a little bit about this. So we're asking tonight for a public hearing for the ordinance. This is going to be somewhat of an annual activity now when we sit with the land bank and determine what properties they would like to take and the reasons they want to do that. So while tonight's call is for the public auction, I also wanted to have some discussion with council. If you want, as far as the package we've got of each of those properties, and we can answer questions just to get you familiar with it. Again, the land bank will be here at the next meeting when you'll vote to do this. So I want that discussion tonight with staff, if there's any concern about what's happening. So when the land bank is here, they want to talk a little bit about the philosophy, what's going on at the next meeting. Just want to make sure they're good with that. Resolution of City Council introducing an ordinance and providing for public notice and public hearing. Be it resolved that ordinance number blank at the time 2020 entitled an ordinance to approve the sale of city-owned properties, be it hereby is introduced before the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York. Be it further resolved that the City Council shall hold a public hearing as a matter of the adoption of the aforesaid ordinance to be held at City Council chambers in the City of Ogdensburg, New York on the 28th day of September 2020 at 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that the city clerk give such notice to such public hearing by publication in the official newspaper at least 7 days before the hearing date of notice set forth in time and place and describing the proposed ordinance in summary form. So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I think the land bank has done a fantastic job with every property that they've had, and that we've given them in order to make them better. I mean, one of them was actually down the street from my house, and to drive by, and at least now, looking at an empty lot that, you know, an adjacent property owner I spoke to, and he's very interested in the property and is hopefully in the process of purchasing that, it's fantastic to see because he is going to do something nice with that property, which is going to make my neighborhood look better. So, I mean, that's just one example of how great the land bank has been and hopefully continue to be. And then my other question was the property on, Green Street. Was that the property that was up for, that was voted down to be sold? The 416 Green Street, was that the one that somebody put a bid in for and it was declined and then now it's going to a land bank?
Yes, there was a purchase offer made to the city back in January, and the council elected to hold a public auction.
And it did not.
And there were no bids received at the public auction for that property.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that was the same property.
So when it says at the end of the chart, at the last column, there's rehabilitation and demolition. So that's an option for the land bank? It's one or the other?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you happen to know, which of these properties that may be going to be rehabilitated versus that are going to be torn down?
I will give you a rundown of all 11, starting with 520 Berry Street. 520 Berry Street is a conforming lot, it's a vacant lot in the city's single-family district. And, the land bank is proposing new construction. We have funding right now to do 2 new construction projects. Construction materials are quite a bit more expensive than they were when we wrote the application for funding. We still have 2 projects within the next 12 months, but we are contracting with both these right now to do one. So one of these first 3 lots will be the first lot that gets new construction. So 520 Berry Street, 427 Morris, and 902 Ogden Street are the 3 lots that are our priority lots for new construction within the next 12 months. 1605 4th Street is a non-conforming lot in the city's single-family district. The city did demolition on this property years ago, but
Was that due to a fire?
I don't know the background on it other than that we did demolition, that may be true. We buried the houses on site, which has made them not very attractive for resale. But the land bank is interested in taking this on. We may have to do some excavation, but we do think that in time it would be a good lot to be sold as a side lot, which is what Councilor Kennedy was just referring to as one of the properties that we did demolition on, Rensselaer Avenue. 1025 York Avenue is a conforming lot, a smaller lot, but it's a conforming lot in the moderate density residential zoning district. This property is adjacent to one of the properties that is currently on the city's zombie property list, and something that the city may acquire in the long term. So this is a property that could be ideal for new construction, but not in the short term. It's more of a long-term trajectory. 416 Green Street is the property we just spoke of. It's a former synagogue. We have identified this as a candidate for rehab. It would be converted into a single-family home and then sold.
That would be my preference, definitely, out of all.
It's the only one that is really structurally sound, but it does present a number of challenges.
It has a little bit of architectural, historical, religious significance too, so it'd be nice to preserve.
411 Main Street is most likely a demolition candidate. You can see that it's really squeezed in there quite tightly, so it should make for a much more, improve the quality of life for the 2 adjacent property owners should we pursue demolition. 332 Park Street, we are hoping that this will be a rehab. We have not been able to actually get inside this property just yet, but fingers crossed that is our second rehab. 327 Madison Avenue is likely going to be a demolition as well. Some of these demolitions are going to be more long-term, so we will initially secure the properties, conduct environmental assessments, and then, conduct strategic demolitions as funding is available. 918 Mansion Avenue, same thing. It doesn't look like it's in the best condition from the street, but from the back, it's in far worse condition. The roof is actually has caved in, and it's falling down. So that also is that is a large lot, a very large lot. So, in that area, it's a nice size lot. So that might offer some opportunities in the future post demolition. 517 Rensselaer Avenue, the foundation is crumbling, and this is also likely a demolition candidate.
So the
Thank
land bank, once they acquire these are tax exempt until they put a home on them or renovate them and then resell them, correct?
Correct, they are wholly tax exempt. In total, I will get this chart to the city manager to give to the mayor and council. The unpaid debt on these properties, these 11 properties, is in excess of $100,000, which is eligible to be reimbursed through the financial restructuring board if in fact council does go through with the transfer to the land bank.
And right now, the city is having to make the school taxes whole on this, and by doing it to land bank, we will no longer be obligated to do that, correct?
Not all of them, we do have tax exempt status for 3 years.
3 years.
But for many of them, some of them we've owned, since before 2008. The chart that I'll make sure Mr. Jelly has the date that we acquired them as well as the unpaid, debt.
Even like people in here today that they spend the money that they plan on recently received through your work.
So Land Bank initially received, $600,000 from Enterprise Community Partners in 2019. We are spending down that money right now. We completed 10 demolitions and we're doing 2 rehabs. And then in February of this year, I think it was February, we received $530,000, which that funding will address these properties. 2 new construction projects, 2 demolitions, and 2 rehabilitations. And the sale of those properties will revolve to do additional demolitions and rehab.
The land bank is a totally separate entity, from the city, not unlike A&R, or?
It is a totally separate entity, but the city does have to report in our audit on the land bank, and Kim could speak more directly to that. But only a foreclosing governmental unit has the ability to establish a land bank. So while it is a separate entity, we have to do all of our own reporting. We have our own tax ID. We have our own ability to bond. We still have some ties to the local government because you all have the ability to initiate land banks.
And
So we wouldn't exist without the council.
and everyone on the land bank board is a volunteer.
Yes. And they are appointed by the council.
This is moved and seconded, right?
Yes.
And I say to the land bank, if people up here haven't had an opportunity to get in their cars and take a ride with some of the properties, they'll do it. And, really, we've got the 5 vacant properties that they've got on the list are some of the best buildable and probably the best that we have in the city to pick from. And the ones that need to be demolished, all of the other ones need to be demolished, except 416 and Park Street's gonna be really extremely heavy. But, they're spot on the list, and I hope they continue. And I really like the $91,000 that we can get to restructure what we're doing.
Any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Councilor Reed?
Yes.
Councilor Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba?
Yes.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
Resolution directing the payment for assistance with preparation of the 2020 final assessment roll Whereas the City of Augsburg Assessment Department requires assistance with the preparation of the 2020 financial assessment roll, whereas the St. Lawrence County Real Property Office recognizes the city's need and offers assistance of their team. Whereas the City Council hereby extends its gratitude for outstanding support provided by the St. Lawrence County Real Property Office. Now therefore be resolved that the City of Augsburg Council hereby directs payment to St. Lawrence County Real Property Office totaling $8,507.10, representing payment in full for their services and assistance. Be it further resolved that the funds for this expenditure shall come from the contract and service line A1355.518 in the assessment budget.
I'll move it.
Second.
I have a question. That $8,500, where does that stand if our own, would our own assessor have done that? We wouldn't have had the contract. What is the cost of our own assessor doing that versus what would be the cost of our own assessor for that period of time?
Well, so say this salary counselors is $58,000 to $60,000. I mean, it's about the same. Maybe if you file a month. Now this was an unknown situation, not knowing if our employee was off, so we kind of came to a deadline. This was work that it did about 3 months work in about 10 days. So
It was amazing help they gave us.
And the fact that our former assessor, the county real property director, was certainly influential and helpful getting this done. And they have agreed, just for council's awareness, while I think we're near working through the long-term solution, how we're going to provide assessment services while our assessor is out. We've got a quote of about $4,500 for the county to also continue the service through the end of the year, which point I think we'll be back on track with our own folks. We have a part-time person really working 1 day a week right now, just kind of taking care of the high point. That's how we're moving through this until we reconcile.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Council Powers?
Yes.
Council Reed?
Yes.
Council Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Council Dilaba?
Yes.
Council Fisher?
Yes.
Council Kennedy?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will again be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
Resolution of City Council introducing an ordinance and providing for the public notice and public hearing. Be resolved that ordinance number blank 2020 entitled ordinance to offer city-owned property for sale at public auction. Be it and hereby introduced before the City Council of Augsburg, New York. Be it further resolved, the City Council shall hold a public hearing in the matter of the adoption of the aforesaid ordinance to be held virtually at council chambers, City of Augsburg, New York, on the 20th day of September 2020 at 7 p.m. Be it further resolved, the city clerk gives notice of such virtual public hearing by publication in the newspaper at least 7 days before the hearing date, and notice setting forth place in virtual describing the proposed ordinance in summary form.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? I'm glad to see this property go. I'm sorry, Steve. I think it is. Yes.
So we don't know. We don't know. I mean, at this point, I say there's nothing known, but it's certainly a concern for us taking the property on. We had an individual come and want to buy the property to arm's length transaction. Because we just took this property this year, it was only a tax lien. I really felt this was not a good opportunity for us to do that. It appears on the outside to be a viable property in a good neighborhood, and I think sending this one to public auction is appropriate because I suspect there could be other interest in selling it directly to the adjacent homeowner.
It's great. It's sat empty a long time, so it'll be good.
Way back, 4 years since we actually. Believe it, I'm sorry, I'm not. It's a piece of property on 4th Street that was cleaned up years ago, and I can't remember which one. I think it might have been that one. Pardon? Well, that's the SRO. The old jackass.
Any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Council Reed?
Yes.
Council Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Council Dilaba?
Yes.
Council Fisher?
Yes.
Council Kennedy?
Yes.
Council Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
And this brings us to old business. City Manager Stephen Jelly will discuss subsequent charter and administrative regulation changes.
Mayor, I think in light of the petition being received tonight, I'll just hold the discussion on this until after we resolve the matter of the petition received.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any old business?
Yeah. Well, not old. we'll be getting it, I believe Councilor Scantily asked some time ago for some updates, right? It will include the monthly, bills for the city attorney, as they come in as well. And, where are we with the, city manager search, recruitment and search for the city manager?
Answer your first question, so I'll send you the format that we proposed to use. I just didn't get it done in time for the update, and that's really on me. So I'll send that to you. City manager, review the position description, review the parameters of it, and I'll be sending that to all council as well for their review and what their desire is for recruitment.
Any, other old business? Okay, this brings us to new business. Anybody have any new business?
One on the agenda.
Oh, yes,
Program.
yep, Steve Jelly will read that, Parks and Rec.
So nothing to read, I just wanted to discuss with council tonight. We've done our assessment of the current, largely the facilities. So right now we have the Bisky, we have the Lockwood, we have the swimming pool, and then we've got a number of programs that we've got a number of programs we need to support, from basketball to softball to baseball to soccer, you name it. So what we're working on now is a position appropriate to work on the city manager's direct staff. I'll call it a coordinator position, call it facility manager position, et cetera. I wanted to talk with council tonight and just get everyone's feeling on where we want to go with this. I feel like we looked at part-time versus full-time. I believe that there's more than enough work to keep a full-time person, gainfully employed, or two part-time people. I feel like it's gonna be better for us to get a quality person by hiring a full-time person. We really need to regain the revenue at the Bisky Center. As of right now, we're full steam ahead with programs that we do, the ice, hockey, figure skating, et cetera. So those are all gonna be things that we're gonna need to help coordinate, require coordinating those efforts. Swimming comes around next year, marina, those are all things. We've successfully transitioned all of the maintenance and repair and, taking care of duties from Public Works to DPW. I think that's been a success. I think we've proven this year that can all work. Largely in a year that we didn't have to manage a lot of, recreation things going on.
Right.
But I think that it'll be, we need someone with kind of that recreation base. I think that person will work directly on my staff, somewhere between Andrew and I, providing day-to-day guidance. But I just wanted to get some feel for the council on what you're feeling with that. A little bit of a sense of urgency for me only with the ice going. Again, I think between Shane and myself, we'll have the ice programs up and running and keeping that going. But I think going forward, to have the quality programs, to have a coordinator type person on staff is appropriate. Don't think we need any other administrative support. We'll provide that from City Hall. I just think we need someone to kind of run interference to help establish priorities for Shane. There'll always be more priorities for things that need to be done, and we have people to do them. Recreation facilities won't be any different. But I think somebody kind of running ahead and making sure those priorities are taken care of is what I think is appropriate.
So the charter calls for a public, or a recreation director. And so that's the position, correct?
Currently, that's not.
Okay. And so what about the staffing of the Bisky Center as well? Somebody to greet people and things of that nature.
Yeah, so at the moment, our use of the Bisky with the current rules for the cohort are pretty restricted. So we're not seeing even the calls for use, and even the calls we're getting are minimal. But again, I think this person also will assist with that. And then we will staff to augment. If you recall, I asked, a couple meetings ago for some time to address this. I think that following through with abolishing the director of Park Rec is appropriate. I don't think we need a department specific to that. So I'm looking for a person to do it, which the Bisky Center will be one of their prime responsibilities. And there's been lots of different ideas floating around for how we use the Bisky Center, what it will look like in the future. And those are all things I want to be able to support.
So you're saying eliminate the position in the charter of rec director?
Now, I'm saying continue with the plan of eliminating the Department of Recreation. I don't think we have enough work for a department. I think we have enough work for a person to coordinate our program.
What about we're looking for people, we have several furloughed employees Are we not anticipating ever bringing them back? Are they permanently terminated? Where are we at with that?
We don't have any, furlough employees in our company.
So everybody that was at the Dubisky has been terminated. I must have missed that one, that memo.
I think we also need, you know, when you work on the job description, someone who, you know, has the ability to promote our facilities and make them, more vibrant with a lot more events. You might want to collaborate with the chamber on that. They do some of that. Most of our recreation programs are run, by volunteers through the Kiwanis Club, which I know you've talked to. I put you in touch with them to do an outstanding job, and we're looking grateful for that. I don't know how many, were being run outside of that, but they own all the equipment and everything. I mean, they're just a great, resource for us. So yeah, I mean, someone that, can run the programs, good with kids, and, but also someone that's kind of a cheerleader that can put on events at the Lockwood Center as well as the Dubisky Center.
I just want to clarify, we're gonna put in the description, looking for a cheerleader who wants to, like, I just don't understand why we are reinventing the wheel. I guess that's where I can't wrap my head around. We had a Parks and Recreation director. He ran the pool, he ran the ice rink, he filled time slips. I understand there's always room for improvement in any job description, but it seems like we're just creating more work for ourselves. Like, we had this whole Major League Fishing thing lined up. I've asked about it several times, had several meetings about it, which would be a huge promotion for Ogdensburg, yet we sit idle and everyone else around us is taking on fishing competitions, and here we are saying we want to bring in growth, we want to bring in revenue, we want to increase our sales tax, and we're not doing anything.
Right,
So you have to see my frustration in that.
Yeah, I do, we are, I thought you and I spoke about this previously. I've been in constant contact with, Mr. Muller, Major League Fishing, the chamber, so we're continuing to work that. Council has something at, the October meeting to discuss the fee and sponsorship, et cetera. But so I can't speak for, actions previous to me getting here. All I can do is tell you I'm assessing what's going forward. I don't know, again, if we need a full department for this or director. I think an individual to work on the city manager staff is more appropriate right now than a full department. So that's where I'm with it today.
And I'm not disagreeing that we don't, I bet with you on that point. I'm just saying, it's just frustrating that we get rid of people and then now we're creating a position to do a similar, not director, but a similar position where these are people in our community whose jobs we didn't want to lose, and now we are going to just hire someone else when could someone have been retrained for the position? Could they have been spoke to, and maybe could we have reevaluated the position and maybe made an offer based on what that job description, and if that person chose to take it or not, that could have been up to them. It's just disheartening that this is what we're doing to the people in our own community. They have families.
I would, like you to consider, I think the summer activities went great, with what we were able to do. It was the pool, with what we were able to do, and which was the pool. And maybe we could have someone for summer activities and someone that's proficient in winter activities. Two different people, you know, one works part of the year. Excuse me, please. Somebody would work. You'd be shown out. Now, someone that would, you know, take care of the summer activities like Penny did, and someone that is proficient with the Lockwood Arena and other winter activities. They work part of the year and the other works part of the year.
We'll draw both ways, Mayor. My only concern is just, again, wanting to attract quality people, keep them on board, et cetera. Not saying we won't get them part-time, I'm just saying it seems the labor force is definitely, attracting quality out of it.
I think it's a little short-sighted myself personally. I want us to cover baseball, Ogdensburg minor hockey, you've got city basketball, you've got Pee Wee football, you have soccer leagues, lacrosse leagues, that are all throughout the city. That's a lot of management, that's a lot of time, that's a lot of resources, that's a lot of field prep, that's a lot of work. And to include the pool and the ice rinks and the general maintenance, I don't see how you can't get around it with the minimum staff of a full-time. I'm opposed to removing the director's position, like Councilor Kennedy, I was unaware that the position was being terminated, and now we're gonna take it off the charter to a vote, allegedly, or soon, I suppose. But more importantly, going forward, there's going to be a lot of management. You're not gonna have the time to do it. That's for sure.
Well,
I think, Council, we have to start somewhere.
I'm not disagreeing, and I'm all for the Parks and Rec, and I'm all for the youth.
Yep.
But I think this is a little short-sighted, and there's a lot of work and a lot of volume that goes into these acts.
I met with Mr. Mitchell extensively. I feel like he gave me a great rundown. There's a great presentation that kind of laid out the details. I met with the Club, went to one of the meetings back a couple weeks ago, and I met a lot of those, significant volunteers that run the program. So I do think I understand. I'm trying to be cautious though of where we are now. We very well could be in COVID this time again next year and not have a lot of these recreation programs again. So I'm trying to proceed as we're going forward. What I know in front of me right now is a very important ice shoot season, and so ensuring that we're ramped up and ready to go for that. While we see what the future brings shortly after the first year, I think is proven where we are now. And I appreciate the understanding of there is a lot going on here on a pretty high community expectation, but I do also think, the reason a lot of the cuts were made, obviously, initially was also to protect the fiscal resources, not knowing the crisis we were going into. So I'm certainly not Monday morning quarterbacking anyone's decision. I'm just trying to deal with what we're faced with.
well, the previous council, you guys cut a lot of jobs on the Parks and Rec, down to 2 administrators, 2 people working in the field. I think we can all agree the parks have never looked better than they did this year, better than they have for years. The Davisky Center looked great. That was a mess. The pool was great, run under Penny. So, and we have COVID, where we have very few activities we could do. If we could have done more Parks and Rec this year, we would have funded it. I added this council added $20,000 to it, plus we found some outside sources to help too. So, do any of you three have anything to say why you cut the Parks and Rec to
They
such
weren't
a...
you have yet to sit through a budgetary anything.
Hey, I'm talking.
You just asked me, asked us a question.
And she's talking. You wait your turn.
You have yet to sit through a budget. So I don't think you can speak for a budget you haven't sat through. Those positions, I've only been on this council, this is my first term. But when you sit through there are items that the city manager will say, okay, so this is what the department head wants. This is what I suggest, which most of the time isn't what they want because we can't afford it. And then we get to the line of that, okay, so this is what council says we can have. And, you sit there and you look. These weren't cuts. These weren't people that lost their job. Most of those are done through attrition, and they weren't deliberately put on any chopping block to get rid of people. They were done because we were trying to make fiscally responsible decisions as we moved along without hurting the livelihood of the people that very well vote us in. We were doing what we had to do, and I can only speak for this is my 3rd year on council. I don't have the experience as some of the other people sitting on council, but all I know is that we've not willingly said we are going to take the Parks and Rec department and shove them into the ground, take all their work away, take everything away from them. That was never the intention, and it was never done like that.
Would you like to speak right now?
Pretty much summed it up.
All right. So go ahead.
We didn't vote, I certainly didn't vote to eliminate the Parks and Rec position, and that's still my position. I think it's about 6 cents on the dollar for a tax dollar to have a Parks and Recreation program in this city. I mean, these are our kids, and there's not a whole lot in the North Country. And to me, I think we need to keep the Parks and Recreation Director position, and I think that's exactly what we're talking about. And so I think the point of this discussion was to say, what's your position? So that's my position. Maintain the charter and a Parks and Rec commission. For 6 cents on the dollar to organize youth activities for our children and things like that, I think it's a deal.
I think we're headed in the right direction, Steve.
Well, I would like to say, do you think the 4 of us are against our kids and activities?
My personal opinion or my opinion of the sitting on council? Because you don't want either of them.
Really? Well, let me tell you, I haven't sat on a budget, but I looked at last year's budget, and you cut out a needed roof on this building, a needed roof on the fire department, and a pool that's in disrepair. How many kids are gonna swim in that pool in the next few years if we don't restore it? Or how's this building? Do we wanna drive down to, the old state hospital and look at the consequences of not replacing a roof? And you didn't even put money in there to repair the roof until could be replaced.
And at the time of
So
the
what do
budget-
you expect us to do when we get this, when we come in and I look at the last 3 years with the growth of revenue spending in the city, mostly health insurance and things like that, $500,000 a year over the last 3 years. What have you done to curtail that and left us with only the ability to raise through future tax rate increases $156,000? That's what you left on the table with the New York State tax cap. So why don't you explain to us how we're the bad people coming in here with you having 11 years?
You've seen a presentation of, I think, upwards of $500,000 of saving health insurance costs just by the new contracts.
I don't see it.
Yes.
I don't see it at all.
We had a presentation delivered to you.
I see it. There was a presentation, but I don't see it in the numbers.
The numbers are
Their numbers are not there. The numbers are not there. Steve Jelly just worked with insurance company today. We're going to save about $30,000.
I wasn't privy to
Sarah
that information, so thanks for sharing it.
Well, I'm sure he'll be bringing it up. But Sarah Purdy wouldn't even talk to them. So what do you expect us to do when there's no money left? When you guys turned away a $5 million USDA grant, and when we go,
There was no $5 million USDA grant.
well, that's funny. That's what Senator Schumer's office said.
No.
You gave up $5 million.
We didn't.
All right, so, point of order, I believe we're on new business, recreation facilities and programs.
I don't think you're running this, so sit down, please. So $5 million, and Senator Schumer says you want more money. I'd love to help you, but USDA is not real happy that you turned away this grant.
No, we didn't
Yes,
turn
you
away.
did it with your
We did not
PLA.
turn away $5
You
million.
did too.
Guaranteed.
Well, then why don't you talk to
Guaranteed.
Senator Schumer's office,
I'll be
because
glad
that's what
to.
they come up with.
I'd be glad to.
Yeah. So where's your solutions? We haven't been running this only for 9 months. We've been on this council. You guys take no responsibility,
The point that
meeting
we're-
after meeting after
conversation we're
meeting.
having, okay, just like the citizen in the audience stated, okay, is we're talking about recs here right now.
We're
okay?
talking about not having money
And
for rec.
We're talking about basically creating the same job that we just terminated.
It's not the same job.
That's the point of the conversation.
It will not be
Where
the
do we
same
not, where
job.
do we want to go?
And then we wouldn't have had to cut these jobs if we had the money to pay for them. Okay, any other discussion on that? Ridiculous. Items for discussion, Steve Jelly will discuss the Augsburg Bridge and Port Authority, 2021.
Council, you've all got the draft agreement from you.
One more outburst, and I will ask you to leave. Go ahead, Steve.
Council, you've got the draft agreement, as we discussed last meeting that you have. If you all just get a look at this, and get back to me with any comments. I just want to give you the high points of what we've done here. We've discussed internally the best way to do this, and after the meeting of this evening, we'll be meeting with the Bridge Authority again. But our plan going forward to be able to provide, somewhat certainty to our staffing structure and fiscal certainty for the Bridge Authority, so they understand what they're paying. Is we're largely going to be looking for the salary for two fixed positions. Now, it won't necessarily be the same people there, but ultimately the Bridge Authority will be paying for two positions. One of the items that I wanted to discuss tonight, just let you know we're considering, we're going to talk to Mr. Burns and Mr. Lawrence about this when we meet, is how we cover the next part. We tried to look at this and say, hey, if the Bridge and Port Authority were doing this on their own, how many people they need. It's not one, it's not two, it's somewhere like, 2.5 or 2 3/4. We largely cover airport flight movements over 2 shifts, the day shift and evening shift, which obviously is 2 people, but how do we cover, when somebody's off? So one of the things we're gonna discuss with them is, do we want to, hit a kind of a flatline cost and charge for 2.5 salaries, or just leave the 2 salaries in here and then we'll charge for overtime that's incurred, like per se when one of these folks is off. The other thing we're proposing here is the contract will have a total life of 5 years, be renewable each year, so we can adjust again our fixed costs for inflation and salary increases, etc. Other than that, there are no substantive changes to the agreement as it was written before. Other than again, we're trying to petition that staffing, so it's clear to the council from a police department perspective what funding is coming out of the general fund and what funding we're getting direct reimbursement for, making sure we're covering all those costs. Full transparency, the only cost I've not figured out a way to cover is noise to the state of the county. Again, when an employee retires, we have that legacy cost on health insurance. But I think this now captures our full costs, including all of our current burden rate health insurance, city overhead costs, etc. So that, questions? And again, this is not for vote tonight. I want you all to see this, just to discuss it. I want to go to the Bridge and Port Authority one more time, get their thoughts and comments, and then bring you back, what we believe is the best piece of.
I think a couple of.
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. All right, go ahead.
Am I going? Okay, I'll go. Ladies first. Okay, I see where we're gonna allocate 2 officers. Is that gonna be 2 new officers that we're gonna hire onto the department with this being reimbursed on a separate budget line, or is this we're taking 2 officers and we're just going to use them for that and leave a hole in the department?
Yeah,
or are we
at this point,
backfilling?
at this point, we've got the staffing to be able to do. Our current staffing in the police department, right now is sitting at 23. We've got some additional vacancies to consider, but I'm really holding off any other filling in the police department. We just promoted sergeant tonight, hired 1 police officer to replace that sergeant, and then I want to work you all through the budget process. The absolute best thing I want to do is hire somebody not only to turn around and do another potential layoff.
No, I understand that.
I'm
just seeing that there's 2 allocated, so I didn't know how they were going to be allocated budgetary wise. Are they going to be on a separate line on the budget?
You're going to see it as reimbursable, but yeah.
Okay. And then we are going to go to a 30-day payment instead of we're at a 60-day payment. Now we're going to 30.
We are, and again, I just want to ask for the council's discretion to be somewhat flexible. The Bridge and Port Authority is current. They've been current since I've been here. We have good open communication if they run into a problem.
I'm happy with that because originally that was one of the things when we had ran into the issue before with the funds. And I think that's great to see in there.
And by giving them the fixed cost, like they'll see generally what their monthly cost is now. This won't be something they'll be waiting, to allocate the sewer to. They'll largely know what their monthly bill is going to be. This agreement each and every month, so they can budget long term for it.
All right, I like that. And then under the training, what is the approximate cost of the city for the training of those officers? And how many officers do we have to train? Will it just be the specific officers that are covering it, or is every officer going to have to be trained to do that?
No, and I'm gonna let the chief make that decision. I think largely, we'll train 4 to 6 officers in any of these things, so we've got the ability to cover them. Similar to like the SRR program, we're gonna start training another officer to be able to backfill and overlap those duties. So we've got to be trained up or not. Someone leaves or gets promoted on it.
Okay. That's all I had for a quick read through.
2 of our questions were mine, and the other thing I wanted to say was this is needed quick. I think the OBPA wants to sign before October, correct?
They want to sign as soon as possible. I think the agreement that we did that gave the extension, let the people who are kind of looking at them know that we're good through the end of the year. This is what starts the first year.
They need a long-term contract. They're looking for some grant money, so yeah, let's do this ASAP.
You can't do this without us.
Okay.
Great job in your negotiations with them and for them also to come through with this extra funding and keeping our police force at a higher number.
Does this, one more question, sir. Does this also include like the administrative duties of the police chief and anything like that? Is that included in there?
So we'll build that as additional hours. And again, one of the things I told Mr. Burns and Mr. Lawrence we're going to do is I'll be able to estimate, what is the applicable number of hours for me, for instance, what is the applicable number of hours for the police chief. And again, I'm hoping all those things end up being small incremental amounts, largely ironing out these things ahead of time.
Will that be at the $48 per hour rate?
police chief most likely, for me, they'll probably give me.
Just questions that I've had asked of me and just trying to understand.
I feel like we're, and again, talking with them, this truly has to be a partnership, as you're all aware, there's no airport without being able to.
Oh, and I support the airport 100%. I'm just saying, I just want to make sure the city is getting, we're pinching pennies. I want to make sure every half cent that can come to the city of Ogdensburg, I don't care whose expense, if it's coming from another business, it's got to come from them. We can't give anything away. So I just want to make sure every single penny we're entitled to, we're getting.
And recognizing a tangible benefit here is we allocate the full salary, because we don't really have the ability to hire 3/4 of the person or a part-time person. There will be times that, we will have these officers working for us in the city, that they'll be paid back. That there is some.
Thank you. And this brings us to citizen participation. At this time,
Are we still in items for discussion?
do you have any more?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
We were handed a petition tonight on for a referendum. What happens now?
The clerk received the petition. She will engage legal counsel tomorrow, and largely the decision of her office whether the petition is accepted or not based on legal advice from us.
If the advice of the city attorney is not what somebody wants to say, or that they believe should be right, what is the next cost? Are they allowed to? What is, if
The city attorney will run her legal opinion, and the clerk will make a decision based on the law and rules of the state of New York, and then we'll issue a decision.
can there be, I mean, we've had several issues with the city attorney. I'm just saying,
Shouldn't I
Where-
go to a judge?
where legal opinions haven't, we've been given one and it's been wrong, or we've not followed it. I mean, is there a way to use an outside attorney rather than the city attorney that seems to be wrapped up in some turmoil in the city that has been a point of contention? Is there a way to use an outside attorney for this, considering the importance of it to the citizens?
Counselor, I'll review it, but honestly, I'm not willing at this point to say that our relatively new city attorney has been tainted by any process. I'm going to allow him to do his job and do what we've asked him to do. He's an independent operator. We hired an independent firm, and now it's 3 employees. They're biased by contract. If there certainly is question or doubt, we can back counsel can certainly direct, second, third, or 10th opinion to that.
Anything else?
Yeah, just a couple of things here. Not off the, I was gonna ask you during the presentation, prison portability, the airport security aspect. What are we doing about the vacant lieutenant positions in the police department?
Counselor, I'm holding everything else at the moment that we go through the budget declarations. We'll get a first look at the police chief budget proposal next week, and then I'm hoping, well prior to the November requirement to have it due, we're going to have that due. And again, I'm real cautious. There's so many unknowns. Preparing this budget, what we want to do won't be difficult, but the unknowns of what the revenue sources are coming in. So I'm just holding everything else from what we've done until we get a part of the foothold through this budget process. It's the right thing to do. We brought a young officer on. I feel like that was needed. Brought an officer back, quite frankly, and I don't want to keep people on the roller coaster. So right now I've got that position. I have a dispatcher that is that's given us notice. Those are all the things I'm going to hold while we figure out. I'm committed at this point, and I hope you'll all support me in the fact that I've just got to continue to provide stabilization. So if that means holding some vacancies to ensure that we stabilize, the employees that we have and give them a sense of security, I think it's fair to do.
One other thing here real quick, and this is more or less just a rumor to put to bed, that there was speculation either by Mike Skelly or yourself that a promotion of the department to an employee out of the bargaining unit to put them in the position just to remove them. And this is something that was been hit by me quite frequently in the last week and a half, 2 weeks, by many citizens here that there was a public comment made. I don't buy it because quite frankly, it's a ridiculous statement, but I was asked to put it out there, put the issue to bed. So is there any conversation with anybody that said that we would promote somebody to a position to take their bargaining rights away from them to fire them?
None that I'm aware of.
You or him?
I know nothing about what you're talking about.
I'm just looking for the room today.
I don't know nothing what you're talking about, Mike.
I have a few items just to kind of go over. These are kind of a little bit broader. We talked about, and this is just me talking, you guys can say whatever you like, a variety of issues. We talked about parkland designation for the mall and the green belt and how old that is and how it hinders development. And I trust that staff is working on that. If you need any help from the council with the elected officials, let us know. We talked about the Augsbury property and working out some arrangements there, so I trust that's being worked on. I'm still interested in a meeting with the Development Authority of the North Country in regards to the sewage treatment plant. I, for one, would like to better understand the project in detail. And as you know, I have a variety of questions. Some of them I got back on that have been shared with full council. I still have more questions though. I went through Desperados and I think it's a shame that a building can sit there for 10 years, and be owned by the city and allowed to degrade to the point that it's going to cost us over $1 million to demolish it. In addition to the cheese plant, a similar situation. I for the life of me cannot understand how these things have happened. I don't mean to point fingers. I don't mean to pass judgment. I just, it's a bit discouraging. So I hope that we continue to work on estimates for demolition and or stabilizing the building. I don't know. From what I saw, it doesn't look like it can be stabilized, unfortunately. It's a big part of our downtown, and be ashamed to see it torn down. We talked about subdividing and selling Diamond National and developing a plan for that. I hope that's being worked on and moved forward. I know there's an artesian well that's leaking in the cheese plant. It's been temporarily plugged, but that water is going into our sewer system when we're treating that. So I would hope that that could be addressed more permanently. I'd like to see a copy of the St. Lawrence Psychiatric Center offer that was made to the previous council. I don't know where that stands. I don't know if it includes buildings. I don't know the dollar amount. I think the idea there was to acquire some of the property and get it back in the tax rolls, and that's my goal as well. I can't vote on it, but I know that the OBPA made an offer to the previous council for 50 acres of land in return for us to be plowing and maintaining their streets down there. I would like the other members of council to discuss that and make a vote on it. The recreation plan we talked about, and I thank you for bringing that up. Then I spoke to Schumer's office today, and EDA and job retention for possible funding for the wastewater treatment plant is an option. I believe Andrea is working on that. I hope the information is being provided to EDA, and that's still a possibility, because there are an awful lot of jobs associated with that in terms of retention, including those that was serving in Hewelden. And Paper Cherry Street, I would hope that, I don't know the circumstances there, it's on the planning board agenda. But I would hope you would consider, the way the last transpired and the idea of having an easement and accommodating all parties rather than putting some in a bad situation. Thanks.
So Councilor, just to touch on a few of those. The parkland designation is something we have been working on because we have a couple other matters in the park. The Augsburg property, we've now made contact, with all the owners. And so we're forming, what I think is gonna be at least the beginning of, a lot of dialogue between the private owners of that and the Kiwanis Club. We don't own any of the current Augsburg property, but the discussion of how we move forward, getting that cleaned up and ready for development. I think both of our meetings, one meeting and one phone call conference with the parties was enlightening for everybody as far as some of the circumstances and things that will be required to move that forward. Wastewater treatment plant, I've got a range of dates that just came in today for the excuse me, an information session with Dan. Desperados and the cheese plants, we've got an opportunity. The EPA has established, just sent out guidance on a fairly significant grant program. So both of those facilities, we hope will score and rate high. We will have to maintain the support of both senators and the congressmen. These are going to be highly competitive grant programs that we certainly need their support
So
to.
that was for the wastewater treatment?
No, wastewater treatment is, there's an information session.
Oh, okay.
For plans and the Desperados and the cheese plant. And just a follow on, we are going to be doing some work ourselves in the cheese plant. But again, kind of on the issue of how do we get here, I don't really know. But when we went in the cheese plant this past end of last week to look for some documents and diagrams and things, we discovered there's quite a bit of acids and caustics, just things we've got to get out of there before we're going to make another effort to make sure the facility is secure. But it is our facility, we own it, so we need to secure those things. The Diamond National property, Andrew and I spoke at length today. We are hoping the state is going to start to free up the funding for the grant program that we were awarded the money from to start the marketing. But one of the things she's working on now is the things we can do as a statement of work for the RFP to establish somebody, and we'll be sending that out to council for input as far as ideas. One of our philosophy, our idea has been just we'll do the RFP to get the consulting group on board, and then let them come in and provide a range of options after getting council and community support, et cetera. So I hate to say we're not doing anything with that. It's just that all these things take money. I don't. The Diamond property, I wish it were as simple as putting it for sale sign in front of it. I just think we all have a little bit higher hopes that we can attract some development. And I think it'll be a good passive marketing effort for the other properties that are along the river as well. That we just talked about in the Augsburg. So if we're attracting the attention of developers regionally and nationally, there can be again, as we're showcasing the city, we can also talk about other available properties that may be for sale. The psychiatric center, Councilor, I'll get back to that. I don't know, and as far as the 50 acres of land in the plan, I'll get back to you after I have my next sit down with the authority. EDA funding, and I know Andrew continues to work on it, and thank you for making the contacts with the senator's office.
Lastly, I know you started work on the 21 budget, and we've had some preliminary conversations about that. When I took office, one of the first things I asked for was a 5-year projection on future tax rates, given the fact that we're the highest taxed city out of just about every city in New York State. We are, with the combined rate with the Ogdensburg School District, the highest taxed city in the North Country from Watertown to Plattsburgh. And I think we'll be heading into 2021 in a much better position because of the decisions of this council.
Are we the only city?
Yeah.
No, all right.
Pardon me?
I think we're the only city
In the North Country?
between Watertown and Plattsburgh.
Watertown, Ogdensburg.
You got Watertown, you got Plattsburgh, you got Ogdensburg. Yeah, we're higher than Plattsburgh, we're higher than Watertown.
Oh, I know. I think the biggest issue is the land, especially a lot like you're talking about with the state hospital. That's been quite an ongoing issue, trying to acquire some of that property so we can market it. Definitely.
We have a couple offers that nothing happened, that we can entertain, so.
Department of Health has been a major obstacle for moving that forward. The prices that they wanted to charge the city. And I could probably send you some information on that. I'm sure I have it. The other thing you mentioned was trying to get some money from the federal government for our wastewater treatment. And then it's kind of like along the same lines as Mike was saying. He said that we turned down a $5 million grant. That was actually a $1 million grant with a $4 million loan at a high interest rate, okay? And we kept asking them to commit. Months and months went by and they wouldn't commit. And then finally, the governor's office called, and said, we've got EFS, they're gonna actually do this instead of the USDA. And so they gave us the money instead of going through them. So the USRDA probably still has $5 million sitting there, some at a loan, some at a $1 million grant that hopefully we could tap into. But we never refused any money. We kept begging them to come on and commit already, and they wouldn't because we had to start this project.
You can go back and read the newspaper, because it says it was turned down by them because.
$5 million grant? If it said that, then it was
I'm
wrong.
not disputing that, I'm just saying.
We didn't turn it down.
What the newspapers reported was that they wouldn't give us the grant because of the project labor agreement.
Yes.
I think there was a vote on it too,
They wouldn't commit.
but that's in the past,
Yeah.
let's move forward.
I don't know one way, just wanted to mention that.
Yep.
I was contacted by a couple of people, and, we spoke with the commander of the VFW down to Wheeler, and down at Blue Park, Rudy Golf Memorial, has a subject name on it. He was a veteran, and he was also a 20-plus year police sergeant in Augsburg. Michael Bouchard. His middle initial was wrong. His family contacted and asked if we could do something about that, to correct it. I believe we're responsible for the stuff that's in the park there. I don't know how the exact money we got there or who paid for it. But I think if we could, it's a middle initial, but I think his name should be spelled correctly now.
Yeah.
This is a group park?
Yeah.
He called a, council, the party called today, and we're gonna run down the responsibilities and how we put the options up.
I want to look at it and if, took a couple pictures too, and I think if they just etched into it, the depth of the H, and then, it won't be as flush as the rest, or maybe there's some type of filling they could do, but I believe, everybody sits up here, he served, not only in the war, he served the city, so.
So this is carved in marble or something?
Big granite.
Granite? I would suggest we talk to a funeral home company. See if
Any monument company. Well, that's what they
monument company, yeah.
maybe someone like donate it, if they were contacted.
Well, I mean, just to,
Even if we can't get someone to do it,
pay for it.
I think we have our responsibility, we should correct anything.
Right.
Anything else? Okay, and this brings us to citizen participation. At this time, anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you have 2 minutes.
First off, I'd like to, comment on your accolades for the city parks and rec. That's good. You obviously forgot about the sitting arena, but the mall certainly does look nice. I didn't know when that got put into the parks and rec. Anyway.
It is park.
It is.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Who does, Northwoods pay rent to? Do they pay that to the city of Augsburg?
This is, maybe previous councilors can tell you this. I don't know when it became parks.
I'm a little disappointed that we obviously turned in our petition a little bit too early, because I was curious to see what the old business was going to discuss with regards to the city charter. Is it something that you have to hide from the citizens, that you can't discuss that, or what's the reasoning for that, I guess? I'd be curious
attorney states in his opinion that the petition is not acceptable because a local government may not expend public funds for the conduct of a referendum without being authorized under state law. Be that as it may, why can't it go on November's ballot? If it's too late for the ballot, what if the citizens raise the money and pay for the referendum itself? Let the citizens speak. Don't try and hold us back. There's a lot of people that spoke. You don't want to hear it, but there's a lot of people that did. So we already know what the city attorney's opinion is going to be, and it's going to take 4 of you to get a second opinion. So we know that's not going to happen. So I've also got different opinions from other attorneys that flat out say your city attorney's wrong. So be that as it may, you want a referendum, allow the citizens to have it.
Is there anyone else? Oh, come on. Yeah.
I have a question. It's about the auction. Is this a virtual meeting or this is in-person meeting? Are we going to get letters giving that you're next to the property or not? Do you have any specific dates already for that? Do we have any?
We don't, but there'll be public notice provided knowledge. And most likely it will happen. Here, in council chambers, so you can show up in person or maybe able to do it.
And we would get letters, not just relying on the newspaper.
Adjacent property.
Okay, thanks. The other point that I'd like to address, I've been attending the city council, but when I tried to look up the minutes and try to follow up on what happened and what didn't and whatever, obviously the last minute is posted on the website is July 15th minutes. So obviously it doesn't help to look where is the minute. I don't know. So this is, I think we need to be up to date as much as we can so that people can look up what happened in the minutes and follow up. This is one aspect. The other thing, the recording, the voice recording of these video minutes is so bad that you cannot follow a session. You have to stop. You have to say enough is enough. I think there are ways to improve that. Other people are able to do it. So I think we can. The other part, I come to this meeting, then I see a bill number 86. But I'm attending the meeting. I'm supposed part of the public to express an opinion if I have any. But I have no description of what is Bill 86. Bill 86 was given to the council members to know what it's about and all that. But being an audience, I have no idea what we're talking about. So obviously by the time we have the time to express how we feel about things, we didn't even see it in writing what we're talking about. This was just my remark. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
I didn't come here this evening to speak. I wasn't even prepared to speak. But I'm angry. I'm very angry, and I don't normally speak when I'm angry. I'm angry because I'm tired of the blaming. I'm tired of everyone sitting there and saying, past council, past government, past everyone. Every councilor, when they come in that council, there's a past council. There's a past mayor. We take what we get. You knew it when you ran. You knew what you were in for. We tried to tell you. And I sat on this council for 8 years. And I went through 4 changes with bringing new councilors in, bringing a mayor in. I sat there. We helped each other. We shared the information. I'm not seeing any of that from the 4. I am just not seeing that. When I lost the election, I reached out, or even during the budget process, I reached out and said, if you have ideas, give them to me now. Why wait a year? Well, I'll see if I believe in them, I'll see about bringing them forward. And I have this in a screenshot on Facebook that said, this is your budget, you do it, we'll fix it next year. And that's what I was told. That is not doing this for the best of the community. I also heard, oh, the old councilors don't want to go away. Well, you know what? We didn't run because we wanted anything from the city other than to represent it and represent the citizens and for the best of the city. games. So we don't go away, because we still care. We don't agree with the direction you're going with, we have different opinions. And part of the reason we don't agree with where you're going is we don't know what you're doing. We really don't. And that's very disturbing. I sat there through many budget sessions, and we made tough decisions. They were not easy. It was not easy to cut the rec department back. It was not easy to cut DPW back, and that's what we had to do, because we knew the safety of the city, through the fire and through the police, were important. And the safety of those people in those departments and replacing equipment and going forward with that was more important than sometimes some of the other hard decisions we had to make. So I know my 2 minutes is up, and I will be respectful, Mike. I'll give you more than what you gave to us when I sat there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
First of all, does anybody sit at this table know how much the city took in this year on an increase in assessment? Can anybody tell me, the taxpayer, how much money you took in for increase in assessments this year?
About 150,000.
About 150, is that true? Close? Not bad, John, that's good, it's like that. You're winning for. The other thing I'd like to address is your discussion on the rec facilities and the program, okay? Mayor, you and I had a long discussion about that, and I'm gonna hold you to it. My concern is spending 19 years there as a Parks and Rec director, I think you need a full-time director. If you want programs, if you want good, solid programs, you need one person responsible, okay? And I can see the idea of trying to have a winter and a summer. You can have a full-time director and also have somebody working underneath them to run the city pool, okay? Run maintenance. I'm gonna tell you something. This isn't the first time that maintenance went to DPW, okay? Maintenance went to DPW 2 times, and it always came back to the rec department. For one reason, okay? They get overburdened with work, okay? And the next thing you know, recreation does this, recreation does this. I had the Seaway Festival. Who does majority of the work? Recreation department. We were lucky this year, we didn't have to do that, okay? A lot of work right there, but you need somebody to coordinate these programs. And I don't know, and John hit it on the head, I mean, I know he's talked to Mr. Mitchell about the equipment stuff. Mr. Powers, okay? Steve, you should know, you worked with Parks and Recreation for 3 or 4 years. There's a lot of work to do, maintenance of the field, okay? 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it pours up. Okay, 3:30, 4 it lightens up a little bit. You got to send 3 or 4 guys out there to get the ballparks ready for baseball that night. Programs will overlap. If you want good, solid programs, they have to overlap. If you want good programs, you give me $1,500 and I'll run 2 programs with $1,500 like we used to. There's ways to do that. You got to work with other community organizations, and I think you guys know that. But you haven't really solidified how much money you want to put into this. Back to John's point about promoting our facility, okay? That was done.
You can wrap it up. Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it right now, so I know you within one ear, Mike, and all the other. But you know what? That's exactly what I was talking about, leadership. That's exactly what I was talking about, respecting people.
Thank you, Doug.
Like Jennifer, I too wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I've decided that I would like to comment on the rec department. My head is spinning. We don't need a city manager. Let's hire an intern. We don't need a rec department. Wait. We need someone to oversee the day-to-day activities. You haven't made it through a full season of what a rec department really does to know the intricacies of that department. You ran a pool this summer, that was it. And we all know that the city marina, despite the efforts of our DPW, was not up to par. Let's call a spade, semantics if you will. This was Mr. Curatolo's position. He oversaw the rec activities and facilities.
He facilitated rec programs for youth. He communicated effectively with organizations to support youth sports, which I have a huge passion for. You had that with Matt Bertolo. He helped keep these facilities and programs running. Matt was available at all hours of the day or night via text or phone calls to open bathrooms at Monterey Park, to assist with the marina issues, or access the Dubisky Center. He was committed. At the 11th hour, our school district needed a girls lacrosse coach. Matt stepped up. He has proven that his loyalty lies with our youth in supporting these programs. And my concern, for the sake of our community, from this moment forward, please give some thought to the consequences of your decisions. You're making impulsive decisions that have consequences that are impacting our community. You have to have a plan. In no other profession do you impulsively make decisions without a plan. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim McCarthy. I live at 1806 Shea Street. Like a couple other people didn't plan to speak tonight. I'd just like to say about the city rec position. I know you had spoke with Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell's a friend of mine, former neighbor of mine, and he did explain about Kiwanis, and I know Johnny's talked to you too. We do have a lot of youth programs that in the city that are run by volunteer groups, but the city does maintain the properties. You know, like some other speakers have said, they're the ones that line the field, they cut the grass. So I guess what I'm saying is I understand that you need somebody, and I understand you don't want to bring a rec director back. I totally get it. At the school district, I worked at the school district for 35 years. There was a lot of times we had somebody leave and we said, maybe that's not what we need. We need something different. You know, we need somebody that's also going to do this. Or we might say, we don't need that much. We don't need somebody to do all that. We need somebody to do only this. So I know I talked to your sister, Kathy, when she used to run the civil service department. I would call her up and I'd say, hey, Kathy, I'd like to hire a groundskeeper. We don't have that in our job description. She says, no. You don't tell me the position, you give me the job description. I will give you the position. So I'm hoping that if you go to the Civil Service Commission and say, this is what we're looking for, and Civil Service comes back and says, that is a city recreation director, I'm hoping that the four of you don't say, oh no, forget it then, because we wanted to do away with the city rec position. And if they give you another title, that's fine, as long as you bring them what you want. But I hope you're not forgetting it either, because a lot of people don't know what Matt did. A lot of people don't know what I did at my job. Most people didn't know what I did at my job. So I'm hoping that you get a lot of information, so you don't leave anything out. Hire somebody in that position and say, ooh, we need it more. That's all I ask, is that you do your homework, and I'm hoping that everybody can work together. I saw a few votes tonight that were unanimous. It's not always 4-3, it doesn't always have to be 4-3. So I just hope everybody works together for the better.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? Anyone else care to speak? Now, if anyone is attending remotely, would like to address City Council, please come down or raise your hand feature in the right-hand corner and you'll be recognized. See anyone, Kathy?
I do. The first individual is registered as Brian Mitchell, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted, Mr. Mitchell.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would just like to state a lot of things that people have said. The mayor, you've sat here all night, the past. Mayor Reach put something on Facebook that was great the other night. We'll see. I want accomplishments. Between the mayor and the planner, we spend $250,000 plus. Show me some project and some results. He's talking about a part-time temporary city manager. So Mr. Reach right there is saying our 4 counselors have not shown any projects or results. So I would suggest that the 4 of you tomorrow, instead of blaming the past, lay out your results. What have we done to move this city forward? And that's what every resident wants, is a better city. And so far, we haven't done a thing to do it. On the same Facebook post, we made the the result that we're gonna hire our part-time temporary manager. Have we thought about any minorities or anybody else that would want to apply for this position? Because we've already made a hire. So if I was coming from the outside and I got turned down, I hope our city attorney is as strong as he is. The other thing, and I'll leave you with one suggestion, we're in a budget crisis. We all agree. And I'm looking at them right now. What I suggest is take Bill's drawings after this meeting and eBay them. Because all he's done for the last 2 hours is draw. I think we can make a lot of money if we sell his drawings, because it's clear that his head is not in the game. And
Brian, it does not have to be personal now. Stick to, city business.
okay, yeah, that's just, like I said, it's just what I noticed. So that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sir, there's one, if you'd like to take it, it just popped up. Yes. This individual is registered as Julie Hines, and I will unmute her now. I believe your line is open.
I just want to say that our children need City Rec. Please don't take that away from them. It's heartbreaking. 32 years teaching here. Our kids need it. Please don't take that away.
I do not see any.
Are you done, Julie?
She's dropped off, sir.
This is still
I
on.
am done. That's all I wanted to say. I mean, it's so heartbreaking. It's been a hard week, and we're doing the best we can. They need City Rec. Please bring it back.
Thank you.
If there's nobody else, I propose we adjourn to executive session.
There is no other hands raised.
Can you, she's done, but she's still on, Kathy.
I don't know where she went, this is why I thought she dropped off before. Give me 1 second, please. There, she's gone now.
Do we have a second on executive session?
The other hand?
No, sir.
Any action coming up?
Did you make a motion for executive session?
I did.
A second? Second, okay.
Is there any action coming out?
Would you please call the roll? No.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
I abstain.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes, but since there's no action, can we also adjourn after that?
Vote to adjourn along with the.
Yes.
can I?
All in favor? I'm sorry.
You're fine, I just want to finish this roll call if I can, please. Counselor Kennedy? Yes. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Counselor Reed?
Yes.
Approved. Mayor, would you like,
Yes.
okay, so you're gonna need a motion and a second to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn after executive, or, adjourn, following executive session.
Second. No action.
Kathy?
For the record, Mayor, you're saying there will be no action coming out of
Right.
executive session?
Yes. Please call the roll.